Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode is brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology, back for another quick MMT Chat. My guest today is Tristan Lee, a process technician with Wepco Plastics in Middlefield, Connecticut. The company recently recognized Tristan's do more attitude through their improvement of the week initiative. Tristan built a manifold system that creates better thermal consistency in a mold, and that saves some serious time in the processing stage. So hello, Tristan.
Hello.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we start by, why don't you explain your current position and your job function, what you do every day?
So my job position is to set up molds and process them in. Also do some maintenance here and there if needed. It's pretty much a normal day. Mostly.
Okay. So why don't you, I like to give everybody, especially somebody that's a younger generation in the molding industry, give a little snapshot of your journey. Like how did you, your background, your education, your job history, what were you like as a kid? Like how did you end up in manufacturing and end up at Wepco Plastics?
So actually, I grew up middle of the woods, pretty normal. Well, for me it was normal. Not really anything around. So I spent a little bit of time with my dad, usually working on cars, our cars more specifically. Other than that, being a lot of hands-on stuff, working on stuff. I actually ended up going to the local technical high schools in my state, and from there I had no idea what I wanted to do. So actually I ended up in a trade for electrical and mechanical.
Okay.
And there, most of what I did my trade was actually fix machines and a lot of like fabrication stuff.
Okay.
So we got fabricating stuff to fix machines a lot of the time. And from there, actually, I graduated a couple of years ago in 2018 and spent the whole summer looking for work and ended up at Wepco Plastics.
How did you find out about them?
My mom actually met someone that worked here, and they were like, "Hey, if we just put your resume in, worst they say is no." And actually ended up having an interview the week after.
Nice. See that? I mean, I don't know if you know that in all your circle of friends, but there's so many jobs available in that manufacturing space. So I wish more young people would, and I guess it's up to us, the onus is on us to do a better marketing job, but because it sounds like you're flourishing there. And there's so much opportunity at a company, and I'm very familiar with Wepco and the team there, and they are one of those leaders and very good culture and everything, which leads me to my next question. So part of their culture is all about marketing what they do and giving props to their team, and that was done through social media. So how did it feel to be featured in the company's marketing efforts, for the work you were doing, to see that post? I mean, that's, didn't happen back in the day when I was working at your age.
I felt really good, actually. It's the first time I'd actually been featured on anything on the social media page, though. Actually, David came over and was like, "We're going to put this on our social media." And I was like,
"Okay." It got a lot of exposure. So tell me, what is the improvement of the week initiative at Wepco? What does that mean?
So our improvement of the week is following our 2-second improvement philosophy. So we make like improvements like 2 seconds here, a couple seconds here and there. This ended up being our actually improvement of the week for that week specifically.
That's pretty exciting. So, all right, so describe the process of building this manifold system, because the fact that it created better thermal consistency in Wepco's molds, that's key. So why don't you give a little detail about the technology behind this system and how you came up with it and what was involved?
So we actually have, we use mold heaters to heat up our molds and actually control the temperature of our molds. And we had issues with some of our some of them shutting off midway through a run for unknown reasons, mostly related to pressure. and the system actually helped with the pressure and helped with better flow through the mold altogether.
Wow.
So instead of like just having one line go through the whole mold, we have 4 going through the mold.
Oh, got it. Got it. So what was that from, like the concept, like establishing the problem to creating that system? What time frame are we talking about?
It's something I've actually thought about for a while, and I ended up bringing it to my manager and saying, okay, I've looked, because I did a little bit of research into it and saw what other companies did for this. And I was like, hey, what if we did this? Because we had, at the time, some aluminum blocks that were milled out. And I was like, hey, why don't we take these and use them to make something make a distribution manifold out of them for the molds. And like, actually David was heard about it. He's like, yeah, we're gonna do that. And he's like, go get the parts that you want, and or give me the list, and I'll order them. And we actually got them the next day, and I built it that day, and then had them out for a couple of days until we installed them on the machine.
That's awesome. Is that something that is put into how many molds? Is it every mold? Most
Currently,
molds?
we still have just one. We're working on the other ones currently, but
That's
we
pretty
want to put
cool.
all our machines.
How much time does it actually save in the processing stage?
So some of our molds, we actually run up to about 180 degrees.
Okay.
So it does, and some of our molds that are really large, so about almost the size of a machine, will take almost in half an hour to warm up normally. And now we're looking at maybe under 15 minutes to 10 minutes.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, everything in mold making and molding is all about time, right? It's all time. Time is money. So any kind of innovation like that is huge. So talk about like what was any related training or assistance you've gotten within Wepco that helped you come up with this and implement this?
And a lot of it came down to we had a lot of the supplies on hand already.
Okay. Was there any formal apprenticeship, any formal teaching or, continuing education or training that came into play for this? Or was it just something that popped into your head?
Specifically in the company, no. I did a lot of external research, mostly online, looked at a lot of information up on how most molders actually did this and how they set theirs up.
That's awesome. You are then, to me, that is the epitome of all the mold builders I've known all these years. They're just natural problem solvers. So do you have in mind, like, is there something else you already have that you're working on that you want to solve another problem?
Actually, one of the bigger things is actually some improvements to make to the current system we have on these. So I think one of them was to get actually larger hoses to run to our mold heater itself.
Okay.
So we can actually get better flow through that.
It's really cool. It's really cool, the innovation.
So,
say that again?
It was to get bigger hoses to put to the mold heaters themselves, so they actually have better flow in themselves, not just the mold, but to the mold heater as well.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay, so let's talk about Wepco as a whole. So since you've been with this company, how many years?
2.5 years now.
Okay, so what would you say is your number one challenge so far at Wepco?
I want to say my number one challenge has just been processing. I came in with no experience working on injection molding machines. I actually spent most of my high school years working on CNC mills.
Okay.
So I came in and they're like, you can figure these out. I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. That's a whole new line figure out, but I've been figuring it out pretty well.
That's awesome.
And then about 6 months in, they're like, hey, we want you to start processing molds out. Okay.
Okay.
Different. Every single mold they're different. They don't act the same. It's not going to be like you'll get the same parameters for every machine. Yeah. It's going to run different every single time.
Yeah. It's true that when people ask me about mold making, because the company I work for has, I think, 9 different mold magazines, 9 different brands, and they're all within the metalworking plastic space. And when I'm asked, like, well, why should somebody advertise or read mold making? And that's what you just said is really what I always end up saying is a mold is every piece. It's a custom piece of art every time. Like it's not a production, it's not a bunch of screws getting pumped out, you know, on a turning machine or something, right? It is different. It has unique challenges, unique features and functions every time. And that to me is what's exciting about that as a career, because there's always something new coming across your bench, right? Or coming into the engineering department. So I think that's you just nailed it there. So what would you say is coming in not knowing anything about mold making specifically? Did you have any preconceived notions about whether it was mold making specifically or manufacturing in general? That like was busted wide open. You're like, oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be like this. Manufacturing is nothing like that. That you could shed some light on for other young people.
Maybe I'd never been in a manufacturing plant before my sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
So I got into one and I'm like, cool. Like just looking at everything going on, it's great. I would love to be working in a manufacturing plant any day of the week over any other environment, regardless of what I'm doing.
What is the most interesting technology that you've either seen so far or used so far, and why?
The injection molding machines, they're just beyond anything else I've ever seen run. So I've worked on CNC mills, and I'm like, yep, you'll put something in, you'll know what you're going to get out.
Yeah.
You put something into a injection molding machine, so many components to it. You have your plastic feeding in, you have the screw rotating in, you're heating that material just by sheer friction, and very lightly some heater bands. And then
I like how mold making's that blend of metal cutting. We sit on the fence between the metal cutting side and the plastic side. So it's interesting to hear that you have that background of the metal cutting side, but you prefer the processing or plastic side.
Yeah. It's plastic, it's like, you're going to get metal, you know what you're going to get as a finished product. No matter, you can make it, or you could set any machine up for a plastic to make plastic parts, but you never know what you're going to get out of it. You just have to go for it and see what you're going to get.
Yeah, pretty cool. What is the most interesting part of your job and why?
Processing and figuring out what I'm going to get. Because like the best thing I've gotten to do is actually sample some of our newer molds.
Okay.
And I look and they're like, just shoot it and see what you get. I'm like, okay. And a lot of the time I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's short or it's got a certain defect on it. And then you got to work around to process that out, get rid of it. And hopefully you don't cause any other defects while doing that.
Right. Fix one thing and break another, right?
Or good parts.
Yep. I think that I can see that being a satisfying position within the company too. But again, like I said earlier, it sounds like you just like to problem solve, finding that root cause and making that process even better, cutting down that cycle time better, improving the part quality, right? Constantly. That's your job. And the technology out there to do all that is just getting better and better too. I think will be more exciting for someone like you as you see the different simulation saw. I mean, there's so many things happening in the industry that will make that more exciting for you.
Yeah.
So as you're looking down the line, or as you look at that next generation that may or may not want to come into manufacturing, what do you think must change within the manufacturing culture, right, in order to continue to attract people like you?
I think the biggest thing is that there's such a push for younger people to go to college and get a degree. And I mean, I graduated with an 2-year equivalent from my technical high school, but like my grandfather, he worked at Pratt & Whitney for 40 years. He didn't have any degrees in anything, and he worked there for 40 years, was pretty much set.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure learning every day, right? Not in a classroom.
Learn more every day. He learned with the newer machines. They got newer machines, how to fix them, and work on them. And there's such a push to go to college, but you could get a job right out of high school just learning a trade, and it's almost as good, if not better in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no debt, right?
Yeah.
Right off the bat. And sometimes the shops will pay for you if you want to go on to college, or I don't know, take some certification. Like a lot of these shops and companies, they'll pay you to do that, as long as you stay on with them, you know? So I mean, it's such a win-win. What do you think, coupled with that question, what do you think is the number one quality or characteristic of a person or skill set that you
Mhm.
think a person has to have to like to survive in this at Wepco or in mold making and molding?
You got to be able to work with your hands. That's the biggest thing, and it takes a lot of commitment and dedication to be to want to be in plastic or want to do it.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? My last question.
Still making plastic parts,
So,
still making plastic parts, and hopefully getting better at it.
awesome. Well, awesome, Tristan. Great conversation. Thank you for sharing a little bit, giving a little insight into who you are, where you've come from, and what kind of makes Tristan tick. And I think you fall right in line with what makes up this awesome plastics industry and even within the mold making world. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. And for everybody out there, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay safe and healthy, and more importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.